Alright, what's up? It's Richie here. I'm here with your Week 13 reviews. The season's almost over. Next week are the conference championship games and then bowl games, so this is the last complete week. Let's just jump right into it. Going back to the Tuesday game, the Ball State Cardinals took on the Miami of Ohio Redhawks. Miami of Ohio, they needed one win to become bowl eligible. They needed one win to possibly win the MAC East Division to go to the MAC Championship game, and they accomplished one of their feats. They got the win. They got a big win, 42-21. They got the 6 wins. They're gonna go to a bowl. They're not gonna go to the MAC Championship game, but it's still a successful season for them. Let's just jump into some stats here. Alonzo Smith, the running back for Miami Ohio, had a fantastic game. 18 carries, 207 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Gus Ragland, quarterback, he was fine. 11-16, 159, a touchdown, a pick, but pretty much it was just all the ground game. They ran for 364 yards as a team. Ball State, they were able to do some stuff. They put up almost 400 yards of offense, but they just couldn't get it done. In the end, Miami of Ohio got the win here. The other Tuesday game was Northern Illinois and Western Michigan. Two pretty good teams. Western Michigan actually came out here with the win, 28-21. Northern Illinois is actually going to go to the MAC Championship game against Buffalo, and I'll break this down later. Caleb Ellaby, quarterback for Western Michigan, 1935-85, but it was funny. They pretty much got this off of some turnovers. They had 2 interceptions. The wide receiver Dwayne Eskridge for Western Michigan, he did have 6 catches for 123. They held Northern Illinois to only 106 rushing yards. But I'm going to shout out Northern Illinois. There's a guy, Sutton Smith, I called out earlier this year. He led the nation last season with 14 sacks. In this game alone, he had 4 sacks and a fumble return for a touchdown, and he's tied, or at least he was in the top 3 or 4 in the nation with 13 sacks this year. So he's an unbelievable player, one of the best in honestly MAC history, not even just Northern Illinois history. Both teams are gonna go play for a bowl game, but Northern Illinois has a huge game against Buffalo, like I said, next Friday for the MAC Championship game. So good luck to them. Then the Thursday night, one of the Thursday night Thanksgiving Day games, the Egg Bowl between Mississippi State and Ole Miss. Then it was all Mississippi State as they romped them 35-3. Nick Fitzgerald 11 of 18, 111, 1 touchdown, ran for 117 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kylan Hill ran for 108 yards and a touchdown. They ran for 309 as a team. They held Ole Miss's normally really potent attack to only 152 passing yards. That was between 2 quarterbacks. Jordan Ta'amu was off. He had a bad game, 8 of 17, 87 yards, touchdown. He was a senior, not a good way for him to go out. They held down the receivers. It was just all Mississippi State as they got to 8 wins. And then the other Thanksgiving Day game was Colorado State and Air Force. It was Air Force 27-19. They ran all over them. They ran for 393. Cole Fagan, one of the best games in fact, he had 34 carries for 260 yards and a touchdown, which is his 3rd highest in Air Force history in a game. They just ran all over him. But Colorado State had their chances. Colin Hill was 13 of 23, 284, 2 touchdowns and pick. Their wide receiver, Preston Williams, it's weird. Colorado State, they just kind of churn out, receivers. Preston Williams, 12 catches, 248 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. He's second. This season, he had a phenomenal year. 96 receptions, which is second in Colorado State history in a season, and 1,345 receiving yards this season, which is 3rd in Colorado State history. But he had an amazing game. He pretty much single-handedly kept them in that game. But it was Air Force finishing off their season with a win. All right, the shootout, one of the shootouts. What everybody expected to be a shootout was Oklahoma faced Western Michigan. Both teams have basically Heisman candidate quarterbacks. Oklahoma passed quarterback Kyler Murray. Every game this season, he'd averaged over 300 passing yards and over 660 rushing yards per game, which if he finishes it off that way the rest of the season, that will be an NCAA record. First player to ever do that throughout a whole season for every game. And it's, I don't even know where to start here. Let's start with the losing side with Will Grier. All he did was go 32 of 49, 539 yards, 4 touchdown passes, no picks. But he did have 2 fumbles that were both returned for touchdowns, and that was pretty much why Oklahoma won by 3, 59 to 56. They ran for 165 as a team. Gary Jennings Jr. 7 catches, 225 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. David Sills V 8 catches, 131 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. It's, the touchdown makers, they just had them all. They had 3 rushing touchdowns total by their running backs. They just scored at will, and so did Oklahoma. Kyler Murray, 20 of 27, 364, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, adding 114 rushing yards and a touchdown. Kennedy Brooks ran off for 182 rushing and a touchdown. And Marquise Brown, not to be overshadowed by Gary Jennings, 11 catches, 243 receiving, 2 touchdown receptions. Oklahoma won a huge game. They're going to go to the Big 12 championship game against Texas. So that phenomenal. It was a fun game. I love these kind of games. And I got a doozy for you later. Just keep watching. All right, now Washington Huskies and Washington State. It's the Apple Cup. It's a big rivalry game for the Washington. Whoever wins it clinches the Pac-12 North division, and we'll get to go to the Pac-12 title game. It was a blizzard, really snowy, really blizzardy, and it all went the Washington Huskies' favor, and a bit of an upset as Washington State was in the top 10. They couldn't get their passing game going. Gardner Minshew, he was 26 of 35, which is great, but only for 152. He didn't throw a touchdown. He threw 2 interceptions. They ran for 85 yards rushing, and they lost 28 to 15. Jake Browning, the quarterback for Washington, he actually didn't have a really good game either. 11 of 14, 207, but no picks and a touchdown. Really, the story was Myles Gaskin, one of the best in Pac-12 history, period. He had 27 carries for 170 yards, 3 touchdown runs. Their defense held down Washington State. Now, the weather helped them, since Washington's more of a running pound team, and Washington State throws it all over the place. But Washington State, they did have their chances anyway. And then Hunter Bryant, receiver for Washington, 3 catches, 108, and a touchdown. And Washington faces Utah for the Pac-12 championship game next week. All right, UCF in South Florida. So this is kind of heartbreaking. Early in the second quarter, Mackenzie Milton, the quarterback for UCF, he was 8th in the Heisman last year. He's one of the best ever. He's probably almost undoubtedly the best quarterback to ever play at UCF. One of the best quarterbacks in the country, period. He got hurt, and not only from the reports that I read, it's probably career ending, not just season ending. He may never play football again in his life. It's unfortunate. They're going into a huge game against Memphis next week. They're trying to go undefeated for the second year in a row. Now I'll give UCF credit. They rallied behind Mac. They went on to beat their rival South Florida in the war on I-4. They actually did end up beating them 38-10. And it was only 7-0 when Milton went out. They kicked a field goal right after, and they did just enough to get it. Now they've won 24 consecutive games. They actually did tie the NCAA record before for consecutive games scoring 30 or more points was 24 straight game, and it was actually set last season by South Florida Bulls, which is who UCF beat. And now UCF tied their record against them. If they can do it against Memphis, which would be freaking awesome if they could, because that means Mac is going to be playing well. Their backup redshirt freshman quarterback. If they do it next week again against Memphis, they have a good shot of winning and beating that record. That being said, their defense played pretty well. South Florida got a lot of running yards later in the game after Mac. It took him a little bit of time to get the ball rolling a little bit. Johnny Ford, running back for South Florida, he had 16 carries for 120 yards. But that was it. They played their backup, both their backup quarterbacks for South Florida. Their quarterback, Blake Barnett, was injured. So the stats for UCF, once McKenzie Milton went out, he did have a touchdown pass. He threw a pick. But once he went out, they really relied on the running game. And Greg McCrae, who's had an awesome last 4 games, basically, he went off for 181 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. They ran for 391 yards, which they really need to do that against Memphis. And they won. Mac was 5 of 14, 81. It wasn't great. He hit a long deep pass late in the game, which was really good. He did run for 51 yards. He can run, which will be good when they face Memphis. But it's just kind of heartbreaking, and it's weird. It's like a 28-point win against your rival, and it like feels like a loss, for a lot of UCF fans. Hopefully McKenzie can maybe the reports are wrong, and McKenzie can come back next year, or at least play in the NFL at some point if he wants to or can. But the hearts go out to him. But UCF, they're 11-0. They got a huge game against Memphis to win a conference championship game against next week. So let's see if they can keep that ball rolling. All right, Texas taking on Kansas. This was important. Texas is up 21-0 at one point over Kansas in this game, and then let Kansas basically almost come all the way back. But Texas held on to win 24-17, which now they will go to the Big 12 championship game against Oklahoma. Sam Ehlinger, he was okay, 16-28, 154, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. He added a rushing touchdown. They really, Kansas defense played well. They're one of the nations, I think they lead the nation with interceptions and forced turnovers. And they did it again and held Texas down, but Texas was able to come out of here. Kansas, on the strength of their running back, Puka Williams Jr. If I remember, let me look here. But I'm pretty sure he's a freshman. Yeah, and he had a phenomenal, he ran for 1,125. A freaking awesome year. He had 103 rushing yards and a touchdown, helped keep them in this game against Texas. But Texas, they found a way to win, and they clinched a spot in the Big 12 title game. Nebraska taking on Iowa. This was a really fun game. Iowa was actually up by a lot. They were up 28-13 in the fourth quarter. Freshman quarterback Adrian Martinez in Nebraska, he brought them all the way back to tie it at 28. Then in a driving rain, Iowa hit a field goal with no time left to win 31-28. I'm telling you guys, Nebraska is winning the Big Ten next year. Adrian Martinez is up for Heisman. I'm not that he'll win it, but dude, the numbers he's put up this year just as a freshman, with a new coach in a Big Ten, watch out. I'm just saying. He was 26-38 for 260, 2 touchdowns, added 76 rushing yards and a touchdown. Maurice Washington added 102 receiving yards and a touchdown. I'm going to shout out Stanley Morgan Jr., wide receiver for Nebraska. 7 catches, 81 yards. It put him over 1,000 yards receiving for the season. That's significant. He's the first 1,000-yard receiver in Nebraska history. The first one. Now, they have a long history of great success. Mostly it's running, triple option, so there's not a lot of possibilities for 1,000-yard receivers. But first year under Scott Frost, he produces the first 1,000-yard receiver in Nebraska history. That's pretty good. Now let's look at Iowa. They had they won the game. Nate Stanley, he's a very solid quarterback, 16-27, 152, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Mekhi Sargent went off for 173 and a touchdown. They ran for 266 as a team, and they got their 8th win of the year. Now going on to Akron and Ohio. Akron needed to win this game if they wanted to possibly make a bowl. They were 4-6. They would have to beat Ohio and win makeup game next week against South Carolina. If they could have pulled it off, that would have been awesome. But unfortunately, Ohio was too much. As Ohio won 49-28. But the quarterback, Cato Nelson for Akron, he actually really had a good game. 24-41, 356. He had 4 touchdown passes, 1 pick. So the offense was able to do some stuff. It's just that Ohio ran for 381 yards. AJ Ouellette, 15 carries, 169, 2 touchdowns. Malik Irons, 18 carries, 126. The quarterback, Nathan Rourke, he had 18 carries for 86 yards. 4 rushing touchdowns, and they just could not be stopped. They're still running. Ouellette, he's got over 1,000 yards for the second year in a row. Let me make sure. I'm pretty sure that. Yeah, well over 1,000 yards for the second year in a row. And Ohio's got 8 wins and trying to get 9 in a bowl game. Buffalo, Bowling Green. Buffalo needed this to win the MAC East to go play Northern Illinois in the MAC championship game, and it was all Buffalo. They won 44-14. Tyree Jackson, he didn't do much passing. It was really the running game. They ran for 332 as a team. Emmanuel Reed ran for 109. Jarrett Patterson ran for 88, 2 touchdowns. Kevin Marks ran for 63 and 2 touchdowns. They were able to hold down Bowling Green's offense pretty well. They only had him 14. Jared Dagey was only 8 of 17 for 84 yards and a touchdown. They held him to 58 rushing yards total. The only shout out I can make is Scott Miller. He's one of the best receivers in Bowling Green, maybe MAC history. 4 catches, 115, 2 touchdowns. That was it. Like, that was all they had. They barely had 200 yards in a team, and he was over half of it, and he had their score. So, if they had a bunch of Scott Millers, they might have had a chance, but they didn't. Buffalo, 10-win season, best season in school history already, and they could win a MAC championship game, and maybe they actually have an outside shot at making a New Year's Six bowl. A lot of things would have to go their way. UCF would have to lose, Fresno State would have to lose, and then hope that Buffalo gets, the rankings way, but it's this whole thing. But it's an outside shot. At the very least, they 10 wins, great year. They very well could finish at 12 in a championship, in a conference championship. Central Michigan took on Toledo, and this is all Toledo. Central Michigan fired their head coach, John Bonamigo. Toledo went off 51-13. They ran for Bryant Komack, 124 rushing, 2 touchdowns. They ran for 293 and 5 touchdowns on the ground. They held the offense to only 130. Central Michigan only had 133 passing and 48 total rushing yards. Really, Central Michigan couldn't do anything. Toledo just did whatever they wanted to, and they're going to go off to a bowl game. Eastern Michigan 2, Kent State, it's kind of Eastern Michigan style. They win. Kent State's not a great team. They have some decent talent in their quarterback, Woody Barrett, and their running back, Joel Shaw. But Eastern Michigan was able to win, come out with a win, 28-20, making them 7-5. They're going to be going to a bowl. Let's see, Woody Barrett, the quarterback for Kent State, he was 19 of 34, 209, ran for 25 more yards. Joel Shaw went off for 159 rushing and a touchdown. But Eastern Michigan, they ran for 237 as a team. Ian Erickson, 17 carries, 118, 3 touchdowns, and they got the nice win. Eastern Michigan, they used to be the worst team in college football, period, like over their history. The last couple of years, they're bowl eligible. They're going to make 2 bowl games in the last 3 years, barely missing last year. So their head coach, I think it's Chris Creighton, he's doing a really, really good job with a program that wasn't good. Houston took on Memphis. This was supposed to be a high-scoring game, and it ended up being. And whoever won this would win the CUSA West Division. At halftime, Houston was up 21-17. Then it was all Memphis from there, as Memphis won 52-31. Now, Houston was without their starting quarterback, De'Aaron King. They played their backup. Backup was okay, but it was really the Memphis offense. They had 2 guys. Darrell Henderson, he's one of the best running backs in the nation. I think he's like 2nd or 3rd in the nation in rushing. He ran for 178, 2 touchdowns. Patrick Taylor ran for 128 and 2 touchdowns. They ran for 401 yards as a team. UCF has their hands full next week, and they don't know that. UCF barely beat them by a point earlier this year. God, I wish that would stop. And now with Mackenzie Milton not playing at quarterback for UCF, now UCF defense is really gonna have to buckle down. Fortunately, Brady White, the quarterback for Memphis, he's pretty good. But he has his times. He threw 2 interceptions in game 1, was returned for a touchdown. He's lucky he has, one of the best running games in America to rely on. But maybe UCF can take advantage of that. Tony Pollard, he's really one of the best kick returners in the nation, but they use him as everything. He had 8 catches for 116 himself. And Clayton Tune, he's the backup that played for Houston. 18 of 43, which isn't good, but 256, 3 touchdowns. He kept it in a minute for a while. They did put up 31 points. But Memphis got the win there, and they're going to go play for the American Athletic Conference Championship game in Orlando against UCF next week. Arkansas took on Missouri. Kind of a rivalry game. It was all Missouri. They went 38-0. Drew Lock, 16 of 25, 221, 2 touchdowns. He added 2 rushing touchdowns. Larry Roundtree III went for 119 rushing. Emmanuel Hall, 6 catches, 153, 2 touchdowns. They held Arkansas to only 10 of 25. They had 3 guys quarterbacks go 10 for 25, 135. No, it was a shutout. No touchdowns, 1 pick. They held on only 52 rushing yards. A dismal season for Arkansas, but a really good ending for Missouri, going 8-4, and maybe they get 9 wins in their bowl. So it was a good one for them. Coastal Carolina, their second year in the FBS, had their shot maybe to go to a bowl. They were playing South Alabama, who's not that great, but it was South Alabama really all game. The final was 31-28, but South Alabama at one point had I think a 24-0 lead, and Coastal Carolina had to fight back. Now they almost did come all the way back, but it was South Alabama, and they had 2 quarterbacks. Cole Garvin, 7 of 9, 111, 2 touchdowns. Evan Orr, 3 of 4, 91 yards, 1 touchdown. But it really was Trey Minter, 24 carries, 203 yards. Jamarius Wade had a fucking amazing game. 6 catches, 141, 3 touchdown catches, and they won 31-28. I'll just shout out for Coastal Carolina. Kilton Anderson, 20-32, 262, touchdown pick. Malcolm Williams, 7 catches, 109, and a touchdown. But for the second year, Coastal Carolina had a really good year, and the Sun Belt better watch out for them. I think next year they very well could play for the Sun Belt Championship. At the very least, I think they'll make a bowl next year. These things happen in South Florida. Nice way to end your season. East Carolina took on Cincinnati, and Cincinnati, they were up 42-6 at halftime. Cincinnati, they won 56-6. The quarterback, Desmond Ridder, 20-29, 335 passing, 4 touchdown passes, all in the first half. No interceptions. They had 2 guys go over 100 yards rushing. Charles McClellan, 8 carries, 114, a touchdown. Tavian Thomas, 26 carries, 206, and a touchdown. Khalil Lewis, 9 catches, 203 receiving yards, 3 touchdown receptions. Cincinnati just did whatever the hell they wanted. They even held East Carolina's normally decent passing game to only 8 of 22 passing for 184, a touchdown, a pick. Trevon Brown, the wide receiver for Eastern Carolina, one of the best in the American Athletic. He had over 1,000 yards last year, and he went off against Cincinnati last season for, I think it was either 170 or 270. I'm pretty sure it was like 270. 270 receiving yards last year against Cincinnati, and they sure as hell held him in check this game. He only had 3 catches for 45 yards. So Cincinnati, they finished off a surprising and an awesome season, 10 wins already, 10-2, and they're going to go to a bowl game. All right, Virginia. All right, the Governors Cup, I think they call it. Virginia Tech. No, that's Kentucky, Louisville, my bad. But really, Virginia Tech, put it this way, it was at Virginia Tech, and Virginia's band was put in the third row, very top of the stadium where nobody could hear them. This was back and forth. It was actually a really, really good game. Virginia Tech, they won in overtime 34-31. And Virginia Tech, as bad as they had a year, they're 5-6. They're playing a Marshall team, which Marshall's a really good team. You'll see that in my preview later. And very, very well could win. They're an 8-win team. But if Virginia Tech can win that, they'll go to a bowl for the 27th straight season, which now would be the longest active streak now that Florida State has lost, which I'll talk about later. But anyway, so Virginia Tech won this game back and forth, in overtime, 34-31. Let's start with the losers. Virginia Tech, Bryce Perkins, 14-29, 259 passing, 3 touchdowns, also added 112 rushing yards. Joe Reed, 4 catches, 119, 2 touchdowns. They were able to score, but it was really Virginia Tech in the end. They ran for 254 as a team. Ryan Willis did enough, with his. He did throw 2 interceptions, which isn't great, but they put up 34 points and they had a really, really good game and won a. Now they've won 15 years in a row over Virginia, and Virginia will not forget that. Then the final game from Friday, the Civil War, Oregon Ducks and Oregon State. It was all Oregon. They won 55-15. They ran for 392 as a team. Travis Dye went for 199, 2 touchdowns. C.J. Verdell went for 187 and 4 touchdowns. Justin Herbert, he didn't play a lot. He got hurt a little bit, but even when he was in, he was 9 for 12, 102 and a touchdown. But he just ran it all over Oregon State. They even held Jamar Jefferson, one of the best running backs in the country, and he's only a freshman at Oregon State. They held him at only 64 rushing yards. The passing game, it got a little bit going for Oregon State, but they had to. Jake Luton was 21 of 37, 282, 2 touchdowns, but he did throw 2 interceptions. One was returned for a touchdown. And Isaiah Hodgins had 8 catches for 133. But now Oregon's going to go to a bowl and try to win their 9th game of the year. All right, the Iron Bowl, Auburn and Alabama. It was 17-14 at halftime. Alabama was only up by 3, and then they were like, "Oh yeah, we're Alabama," and then they won 52-21. Honestly, they're the best team in history of college football. That's not an exact. They won all 12 of their games by 20 or more points in the quote best league, conference in America or whatever. Tua Tagovailoa, he's winning the Heisman. The quarterback for Alabama, 25 of 32, 324 passing, 5 touchdown passes, and he ran for another touchdown run. He's the first Bama player with 6 total touchdowns in a game and tied a school record with 5 touchdown passes against a rival. Auburn, they had some nice plays. They had some, they kept it close for a little while. They had some good things going on. They were able to run a little bit and move a little bit, but it was just all Alabama as they were gearing up for a huge game in the SEC championship game against Georgia. Clemson took on South Carolina. This is actually a lot closer than people expected. This is a fun, high-scoring affair. Clemson was only up 28-21 at halftime. They ended up winning 56-35. There was just all kinds of stats here. South Carolina, Jake Bentley, 32 of 50, 510 passing yards, 5 touchdown passes against Clemson. Deebo Samuel, 10 catches, 210 receiving yards, 3 touchdown touchdown receptions against Clemson. Shi Smith, 9 catches, 109 yards. He had a touchdown reception against Clemson. And then Clemson, they kind of do what they do. Trevor Lawrence, the game of his life so far, 27 of 36, 393, a touchdown pass. Travis Etienne, 28 carries, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's got 19 rushing touchdowns this year, which is a school record already. T. Higgins, 6 catches, 142, and a touchdown. Both teams, Clemson had well over 700 yards, almost 750 yards of offense. South Carolina had actually exactly 600 yards of offense. This was ended up being a really fun game to watch, back and forth, and Clemson got it in the end. Notre Dame took on USC. This is the nail biter of the year for Notre Dame. USC was up 10-0. They had so many shots to go. They could have been up like 24-0, but they committed a few turnovers in the red zone or in Notre Dame territory when they were driving. And Notre Dame ended up coming back to win. A close game though, 24-17. Ian Book, quarterback for Notre Dame, 22 of 39, 352, 2 touchdowns. Dexter Williams, he's been awesome since he came back halfway through the year. 16 carries, 97 yards, and a touchdown. But shout out USC, they have the talent. JT Daniels, he's a freshman, 37 of 51, 349, 1 touchdown, no picks. Tyler Vaughn's 12 catches, 120 yards, and a touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 10 catches, 94 yards, and a touchdown, or no touchdown. And USC, unfortunately, they're not going to go to a bowl, and their coach may actually end up being fired, but it was still a really good game. And now Notre Dame will probably be going to the playoffs. All right, Michigan took on Ohio State, and this was a coin flip, and Ohio State killed them 62-39. That's the most points Michigan has ever given up in their history. Not just to Ohio State, ever in a game. Dwayne Haskins, I've been calling him Heisman all season. All he did was go 20 or 31, 396. He had 6. Holy fuck! Did he have 6 touchdown passes? That doesn't sound right. It says he's got 6. He had 6 touchdown passes, but I don't think. I'm pretty sure it was 5. I think he had 6 total touchdowns. That's about right. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. Wow, he had 6 touchdowns. They must have changed that because I read it last night and it was like 5. Either way, he had a freaking awesome game. 6 touchdowns. Paris Campbell went off 6 catches, 192 and 2 touchdowns. They ran for 171 as a team. They just scored however they wanted to. Dwayne Haskins though set a Big Ten record with touchdown passes. Got 41 on the year, and they clinched the Big Ten East. They're going to face Northwestern in the Big Ten title game. And, you know, for their credit, Shea Patterson, quarterback for Michigan, 20-34, 187, 3 touchdowns and a pick. But they just weren't able to keep up or stop Ohio State in that. So, according to this line, Dwayne Haskins passed for 396 and 6 touchdowns. I thought it was 5. They must have changed that later. But I'll have to... I kind of want to look at it now, to be honest. But either way, 5 or 6 touchdowns, whatever he did. He had a great game. All right, Georgia Tech took on Georgia, and it was all Georgia. They won 45-21. They held the triple option, which normally Georgia Tech runs for like 350 a game. They only ran for 128. It was Georgia Jake Fromm, 13 or 16, 175. He had 4 touchdown passes. DeAndre Swift ran for 105 yards and a touchdown. Georgia did the running more so than Georgia Tech. They ran for 285, and as they gear up for a huge SEC championship game against Alabama next week. LSU and Texas A&M. Now, this was a game that my brother and I, we were watching. We were on the phone. We were watching it together because he's in California. LSU was up 31-24. Texas A&M had the ball. They were like 60 yards, 70 yards away with like 30 seconds left. Kellen Mond, the quarterback for A&M, he throws an interception. They're like, all right, this is over. You know, because there's 30 seconds. They had no timeouts. They were just going to kneel it. We turn it over to watch the USC Notre Dame game. And then we see this highlight come up and say that Texas A&M tied the game with LSU and are going to overtime. And then we're like, what the hell happened? And as we turned it back, frantically trying to figure out what was going on, we realized on the interception play, the snap was actually low. The one that the play where Kelmon threw the interception, the snap was low. And when he grabbed the ball and had possession of it, his knee was on the ground. So he was down. And the play's dead right there. No interception. So apparently they kept the ball. They got it down to like inside the 20, around the 20, somewhere around there. They spike it with 1 second left. They said the time ran out. They went back and looked at it and said, you know what? No, there should be a second left. That was all they needed. They tie the game. They get a touchdown, tie the game, 31-31. Go to overtime. Great finish. Awesome, overtime, great, it's going to be fun. First overtime, LSU gets a field goal, they go up 34-31, all Texas A&M needs is a touchdown, right? They even get down to the 1 yard line, first and goal, and you're like, yeah, they have Travion Williams, one of the best running backs in the country. In fact, he ran for 198 yards in this game and 2 touchdowns. They couldn't get it in the end zone. So then you're like, and they kick the field goal at a time. Like, okay, go to 2 overtimes. What we did not know is we were witnessing the highest scoring game in FBS history. And tied for the most overtimes in FBS history. This game went to 7 overtimes. Texas A&M won 74-72. I'm not joking. That's not a basketball score. That happened on the football field. 74-72. And from a game that everybody turned off and thought, this is over, interception. No. It's unfreaking believable. There's so many stats here. Let's just jump. Joe Burrow, LSU, quarterback. The losing quarterback, 25-38, 270, 3 touchdowns, ran for 100 yards, also 3 rushing touchdowns. They ran for 215 as a team, and they put up only 72. Kellen Mond, 23-49, 287, 6 touchdown passes. Travion Williams, and 1 more rushing. Travion Williams, 198 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. Corton Davis, 7 catches, 101, 2 touchdowns. It was the most insane game that I've ever witnessed, watched. It was unbelievable. And we don't even know if there's an 8th overtime anymore. Because this is the 6th time in NCAA history that a game has gone to 7 overtimes. We don't know. This was an unbelievable. It's a high-scoring game. It tied the record. Texas A&M, their 74. The 74 points that LSU gave up is the most ever given up by a ranked team, which kind of makes sense. And it's just that was the game of a friggin'. That's the game of the year right there, and we almost missed it. We turned it off. All right, the Florida Gators took on the Florida State Seminoles, and this was all Florida, thank God. They won 41-14. Felipe Franks had a great game, 16-26, 254, 3 touchdowns. LaMichael P-Ryan ran for 129 and a touchdown. I'm a Gator fan, ran for 282 rushing yards. Javon Grimes, 5 catches, 118 receiving yards, and a touchdown. They held Florida State to 154 passing. Francois, I told you guys he sucked. 14-29, 154, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, and it was all Florida. And Florida State now ended their 36 years in a row going to a bowl and 41 straight winning seasons. Goodbye now. Maryland took on Penn State. This is all Penn State. They shut down the Maryland rushing game. Only held them to 74 rushing yards. Trace McSorley, he does what he does. 12-22, 230. A touchdown, ran for 64 yards and 2 touchdowns. Miles Sanders ran for 128, and they ran for 310 yards as a team as they won big 38-3. Then Kentucky and the Louisville down. This is the Governor's Cup. The rivalry is all Kentucky, 56-10. Terry Wilson had a great game. He's a freshman quarterback. He started the season shitty. He ended up really well. 17 of 23, 261, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Added 79 rushing yards and a touchdown. Benny Snell ran for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Aston Rose ran for 112 yards and a touchdown. They ran for 340 as a team. They held Louisville to only 79 passing yards. Louisville did run for 226, but it didn't matter. It was all Kentucky. Benny Snell, though, he's only 107 yards away from the school record career rushing yards record. So whatever bowl game. Not only that, Kentucky's got 9 wins this year. They could very well get 10. First time they've had 9 wins in like 40 years or something like that. Maybe 50, something, whatever. But they're having a really, really good year. BYU, Utah, the Holy War. It was all BYU for a half. They're up 20-0, and then they choked it away. Utah came all the way back to win 35-27. Jason Shelley, quarterback, filling in for Tyler Huntley. For Utah, 19-28, 141 and a touchdown. He ran for a touchdown as well. They ran for 155 as a team. They had a defensive touchdown in the game. BYU, Zach Wilson is a freshman. He had a pretty good game, 20-29, 204, 2 touchdowns and a pick, but they just could not hold on to win the holiest of wars, and they lost. But they're still going to go to a bowl game. And Utah faces Washington for the Pac-12 championship game next week. Northwestern taking on Illinois. Northwestern, they already had clinched the Big Ten West Division. They're going to go to a Big Ten title game. They won this game 24-16. Clayton Thorson, 12 of 18, 110, 2 touchdown passes, 0 picks. Isaiah Bowser went off for 166 in that game. They played a bunch of backups. Their coach said, their coordinators were like, no, can we get these guys to get in? They're like, no. And their backups had really good experience against a decent team in Illinois, where they were able to help them hold on to a win. A.J. Bush, the quarterback for Illinois, he was okay, 23, 39, 281, a touchdown, a pick, added 56 rushing yards, but they just came up a little short. Now Northwestern, they have to gear up and go face Ohio State, who just put up 62 points on Michigan, the #1 defense in the country, by the way, and see if they can do that. Syracuse taking on Boston College, a little revenge from last year. They lost badly. Eric Dungey in his second to last game of his career, he had a great game, 21 of 34, 362 passing, 3 touchdown passes, and 3 touchdowns running. Dante Strickland ran for 129. Sean Riley, 5 catches, 115 and a touchdown. Dungey's 32 total touchdowns so far this year are a school record. Boston College, Syracuse held Boston College's A.J. Dillon down to only 56 rushing yards, 105 yards receiving. Anthony Brown, the quarterback for Boston College, he was okay. 17 to 37 is not good, but 251, 3 touchdowns, but he did throw the 2 picks. They were in it for a little while, but Syracuse took over from there. All right, Mountain West game of importance. Mountain West game, both teams in the top 25. Utah State, basically the #1 scoring team in the country all year. Them and Alabama. Utah State and Alabama pretty much been going back and forth, #1 and 2 all year. Boise State, they always have the offense. They always have a team. Whoever wins this would clinch the Mountain West Mountain Division and would go play Fresno State for the Mountain West Championship game, and that ended up being Boise State. Brett Ripien, 15th in NCAA history in passing yards. Mountain West record 21 300-yard passing games. He went off on them. Alexander Madison, running back for Boise State, went off. It's actually both teams had really good stats, and it was a close game, and Boise State only won at the end 33-24. Ripien went off 23-32, 310, a touchdown. Alexander Madison, 37 carries, 200 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. Jordan Love, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and he's only a sophomore for Utah State. He was 29 of 47, 363, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Aaron Vaughns had 7 catches for 107. But Utah State, they got nothing to be ashamed of. They lost the first game at Michigan State. They reeled off 10 straight and almost won a championship here, a division title anyway. They got 10 wins this year. They're 10-2. Boise State's 10-2. They're gonna go play Fresno, and that'll be a phenomenal game for them. All right, Pittsburgh. They won the ACC Coastal. They clinched it a couple weeks ago. They're gonna go play Clemson, and they go into Miami, and they won. Miami won 24-3. They slaughtered them. Miami is one of the best defenses in the country. They lead the nation in tackles for loss, and it's not even close. They're like 20 above the next or whatever. And they got it done. They had a punt return for a touchdown. They ran for 293. Travis Homer only had 8 carries for 168 yards and a touchdown. They smothered the Pittsburgh defense. But 2 guys, Quadri Allison over 1,000 yards. Darren Hall, I think he's close. He'll probably get it. He should get it in the next few games. Yeah, he's 935 the next few games. So basically 1,000 yard rushers in one team, and they held that team to only 69 rushing yards total. And their defense was awesome. They're finished 75. Now Pitt has a humongous game next week against Clemson. If they can pull that shocker, that would be pretty awesome. It'd be pretty cool to see. But good luck to Pitt. Congrats to Miami. Kansas State up on Iowa State. Man, Kansas needed this to go to a bowl. They were up 38-21 in the 4th quarter. Iowa State comes all the way back to win 42-38. They had Kansas State fumbled it. Iowa State returned it for a touchdown and helped them lead it back. David Montgomery, the running back for Iowa State, had an awesome game. 149 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. Brock Purdy, 20 of 27, 337, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Hakeem Butler, 5 catches, 144 and a touchdown. That's for Iowa State. Then you go to Kansas State. Skylar Thompson, basically the best offensive game of the year, probably. Skylar, all the way around. Skylar Thompson, 18 of 27, 183, 3 touchdown passes, no interceptions. Alec Barnes, one of the top, I think, 10 or 15 rushing nationally. He ran for 184 yards and a touchdown, but they just could not hold on to get to a bowl, and Iowa State got, they escaped with one there. All right. Marshall taking on Florida International. Florida International needed to win this game to win the CUSA East Division and go play UAB for the CUSA Championship. They could not do it. Marshall's a really good team. They're 8-3 also. Now, they won the game 28-25. It was pretty close, but Florida International had their shots. They had a lot of, they missed a field goal inside the 10. They had a lot of chances inside the 10, inside the 20. They threw interceptions. James Morgan, he threw 2 interceptions. They ran for 190 as a team. They were able to keep it close. But Isaiah Green, the quarterback for Marshall, he's pretty good. Passed for 176, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Brandon Knox ran for 109. And Marshall, they have they have a good team. They actually have a chance at a 10-win season. They're 8-3. They play a Virginia Tech team who's kind of down but will be motivated next week as a makeup game. If they win that, they go to 9-3. If they win their bowl, 10-3. It's a really good year. Either way, they're having a really solid year. So, unfortunately, Florida International. But Florida International, they are 8-4, and they're going to go to a bowl. So they can both end their year pretty well. Western Kentucky, Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech was one of the better CUSA teams. They came in the game 7-4. And this is why you play the games. Because Western Kentucky just demolished them. They beat them 30-15. It wasn't really even that close. They were up 23-0. Louisiana Tech they started coming back. They made it a 8-point game at one point in the game, but then they they just couldn't bring it all the way back. Jamar Smith, the quarterback for Louisiana Tech, he did throw for 280, but he had an interception, no touchdowns. They were only held to 61 rushing yards. The only thing I can say is they had 200-yard receivers. Adrian Hardy, 9 catches, 125, and Alfred Smith, 8 catches for 105. But Western Kentucky, they just got enough. Their quarterback play wasn't great. Stephen Duncan, 11-22, 92 yards, a touchdown, a pick. Joshua Samuel ran for 71. They ran for 196 as a team, and that was pretty much all they ended up needing. Their defense actually played really well. Western Kentucky, they only finished 3-9, but they ended the season positively. Louisiana Tech, they didn't end the regular season positively, but they're 7-5 and they should be going to a bowl, so maybe they can rectify their situation there. All right, a game between 2 5-6 teams. Everything's on the line in this. Baylor taking on Texas Tech. Whoever wins this goes to a bowl. And Baylor ended up winning a pretty good game, 35-24. It was back and forth, and Baylor scored late to kind of clinch it. Charlie Brewer, the quarterback for Baylor, 22 of 30, 308, 3 touchdowns passing. John Lovett ran for 125 and a touchdown. Chris Platt, 6 catches, 114. McLean Carter, started for Texas Tech, threw for 247, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks, but it wasn't enough. And now Cliff Kingsbury is probably gonna. He's on the ropes. He's probably going to get fired. But Baylor had a really good year, bounce back year. Last year, they only won 1 game. Now they're 6-6, and they should be going to a bowl game. Another rivalry, but another 5-6 team. Purdue facing Indiana, and this was another close one. And Purdue was able to come out with the win, 28-21. They're going to go to a bowl game. David Blau, what's the name? The name again is David Blau. He was 27-35, 310, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Rondell Moore, freshman, one of the best receivers in the country, period, and he's a freshman. Rondell Moore, he had 12 receptions for 141 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's actually tied the school record with 7 100-yard games this season already. I'm pretty sure he's a freshman. I might have been talking out of turn. Yeah, he's a freshman, and he's already setting all kinds of records. Indiana, Peyton Ramsey, he had a really great game, 36 of 51, 345 passing, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Stevie Scott, one of the best, he's a really good freshman running back. He ran for 104 yards and a touchdown. And in fact, he set a school record for freshmen with 600-yard games this year. Indiana, they forced a turnover. It's a weird stat, but whatever. And they've gone 18 straight forcing a turnover here, and they did have a guy, Nick Westbrook, 8 catches, 125 and a touchdown, but it wasn't enough, and Purdue's going to go bowling. All right, Navy taking on Tulane. Tulane was last season. They were 1 win away from bowl eligibility. I feel like, I can't remember who they were playing, but I remember watching it vividly. They scored a touchdown with no time left to win. The refs said no. I thought it was one of the most bullshit calls I've ever seen. If you could see it, it's like clear the ball crosses the goal line. They said he was short. They were denied a bowl game. Tulane in this game goes up 21-3 on Navy. They're feeling really good about themselves. Navy comes all the way back to go up 28-21. Then with about a minute 17 left, Tulane gets a touchdown. They go for 2 to try to basically try to win it, put the pressure on Navy, and they got it. Tulane won 29-28. They're 6-6. They're probably gonna go. They have a very good chance of going to a bowl game. And what a way to do it in such a fashion. I guess it's only fitting that they keep it close. I guess they missed out on a close one last year, and they wanted to prove they could win the close one this year. Justin McMillan, the quarterback for Tulane, 18 of 29, 291 passing, 3 touchdown passes, added another one rushing. Darnell Mooney, 5 receptions, 135 yards receiving, and a touchdown for Tulane. Tulane sold out to try to stop the triple option of Navy. They're one of the tops in the country in rushing, well over 300 yards a game rushing. They were only held to 117, but Zach Gaby, the quarterback for Navy, they don't really even pass much, but he was 7 of 13 for 167 and a touchdown. He hit a really long touchdown pass to help, 73-yard touchdown pass to help bring them back. But it was ended up Tulane in a really, really good, exciting finish. And, congrats to Tulane for at least getting bowl eligible. All right, and big rivalry game, NC State taking on North Carolina. I was talking about this game. North Carolina, they've lost a lot of close games, and I actually went back and looked. They're 2-9. 5 of their games were by a touchdown or less. And this one, before this game, 4 of them then. And this one, they only lost by 6 points in overtime. And NC State ended up winning 34-28. It was really the Reggie Gillespie show, the running back for NC State. He ran for 129, 5 touchdowns, which ties the school record, including the 5 touchdowns were all the points, so it was the game winner. Jacoby Myers, 7 catches, 111 for NC State. North Carolina, obviously, they were to, Cade Fortin, 19 of 40, not very good. 276 passing, a touchdown pick. They ran for 153 as a team. And they were able to put up some points. I'm going to say it now. Watch out for North Carolina next season. They have the offense. There's a lot of games. Not only have they been in those games by 7 points or less, and then two of the others were by 10. They were really only blown out twice. They put up a lot of points. This game they put up 28 points. I can't even I'll just break it down. They lost 24-17 the first one. They lost 22-19. They put up 37 points against Syracuse and lost. They put up 21, 28, 35 against Duke, 28. So they're putting up points. And I think they'll convert those to wins next year, and they'll at least make a bowl game next season. But this year is NC State winning this one. All right, another rivalry game. Wake Forest taking on Duke. Duke's had a pretty decent season. They're 7-4. Wake Forest is 5-6. They need to win a game to get to a bowl. I picked Duke in this. I was way the hell off. Wake Forest, not only did they win, they beat them 59-7, and they set a school record for largest margin of victory over an ACC opponent ever. 59, and it was against one of their big rivals. Jamie Newman, 18 of 23 passing, 177, 4 touchdown passes. Cade Carney, 31 carries, 223 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 340 rushing as a team. Greg Dortch has had an awesome season, 10 catches, 124 yards, and a touchdown. They held Duke down only 106 rushing yards. Daniel Jones, who's a really good quarterback for Duke, he was only 17 of 36 for 145, a touchdown, a pick. And it was all Wake Forest, and congrats to them. They should be going to a bowl. Oh, my computer's going crazy on me. I'm pretty sure I just got rid of a whole lot of games here. I guess you this is just have to wait for a moment. Alright, actually, so it ended up not being that bad. Alright, so Old Dominion and Rice. Rice was on the second longest losing streak in the country, and they were actually able to end it against Old Dominion as they won 27-13. Yuma Otoviano set a school record for a freshman with 224 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns running. Blake LaRussa for Old Dominion, they like to pass it all around. He did it again, 312, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. I'm just going to shout these guys out, and I'm going to make a video later. But Jonathan Duhart and Travis Fulgham had 95 and 88 receiving yards. They both went over 1,000 yards. So Old Dominion actually had a pretty good passing game, 2 1,000-yard receivers. But still a good way for Rice to end that season with that win there. Alright, so New Mexico State taking on Liberty, and Liberty's in a transition year. They want to, going into the game, they didn't have enough bowl eligible teams, and Liberty, if they were to beat New Mexico State and if they win next week, they could have a shot at it. Now there's enough so they can't get to a bowl, but Liberty still obviously want to win. They want to try to finish at least 6-6 in their first year, which would be a really good transition year. And they're a bit halfway there. They beat New Mexico State 28-21. Stephen Calvert, 18 of 31, 154, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Frankie Hickson, 27 carries for 116 yards. The quarterback for New Mexico State, Josh Atkins, 29 of 54, 313, a touchdown, a pick. And it was pretty. It was kind of a game I figured it would be. Both offenses are pretty decent, pretty good, really good. Especially Liberty's a really good passing game. New Mexico State showed they can pass it a bit and put it up, and it was a pretty close game. Liberty was up most of it, but it ended up being a pretty close game that Liberty won in the end. All right, Georgia Southern Eagles taking on Georgia State, and this is all Georgia Southern. They finished the regular season 9-3 as they won 35-14. Shea Warts, 8 of 11 passing, 105, 2 passing touchdowns, 75 rushing yards more, and a touchdown. Wesley Fields went for 151. In a touchdown, they ran for 276. They held Georgia State's team down to only 14 points. With Dan Ellington's a decent quarterback for Georgia State. He was 20, 33, 170, 2 touchdowns a pick, added 41 rushing, but they held him down to only 94 total rushing yards, and Georgia Southern is definitely going to go to a bowl and finish maybe with a 10-win season. I'm going to just call it out here. Georgia Southern, they've only turned it over 5 times all year, which as long as the record in a season, NCAA history, is 8 times, held by 6 different teams, right? As long as they turn it over less than 3 times in their bowl game, they will set the NCAA record for turnovers, how many turnovers they've committed in the year. They're one of the tops in the nation in forcing turnovers and turnover margin, and this is part of it. And they're just having an awesome, awesome year. Wyoming was dead in the water for a while. They faced New Mexico, and they became bowl eligible. So they have one of the best running backs in the country, Wyoming, and they won 31-3. They ran all over them. They ran for 366 yards. They held New Mexico to 83 yards of offense total, not just rushing or receiving, total yards of offense. Nico Evans he was hurt all week. He didn't play. And then, all right, I should take that back. He was hurt all week, didn't practice, and he's like, I'm good, runs for 142 and a touchdown. Then their other running back, Xavier Valade, ran for 182 and 2 touchdowns. And Wyoming, I think at one point they were like 3-6 or something. And probably, yeah, they were 2-6 at one point, and they won their last 4 games to get to bowl eligibility, and probably, not probably, but there's a good chance that they will make a bowl game. So congrats to them. All right, Troy and Appalachian State trying to win the Sun Belt East Conference. 2 of the best teams in the Sun Belt the last few years. Troy is always there. Troy was undefeated in the Sun Belt, but this is about Appalachian State. Their team, especially their defense, holding a good Troy team down. Appalachian State won 21-10. Quarterback Zach Thomas, 12 of 24, 113, 2 touchdowns. They ran for 201 yards as a team. Darrington Evans ran for 108. They held Troy's running game to only 62 yards rushing, to only 170 yards passing. Great game for Appalachian State. They're going to go to the Sun Belt Championship game against Louisiana Lafayette next week. Then you got Southern Miss taking on UTEP, and Southern Miss has kind of had an up and down season. Their quarterback Jack Abraham had gotten hurt. He was like in the top 10 nationally at one point, passing, averaging 3-something a game. He'd gotten hurt, but Tate Wiley came in and kept it going, and they beat UTEP, and they finished the regular season 6-5, and they're probably, they're at least bowl eligible, and they're actually bowl eligible for the 22nd time in 25 years. People don't realize how consistent Southern Miss is. Southern Miss in the especially mid-late 90s and early 2000s, they were like one of the Group and 5 teams that would put scares and beat teams. Like beat the bigger team, beat the bad boys. They were like the precursor to what Boise State ended up being, and UCF and USF and Utah at one point, and TCU at one point. It was kind of started with these guys at one point. And they had a really good game against UTEP. They won 30. They destroyed them 39-7. They ran for 252 yards. For Travinsky Mosley went for 107 and a touchdown. And they held UTEP to under 200 total yards, and got a really nice win and should go to a bowl game. All right, Louisiana taking on Louisiana Monroe, and this was a huge game, not only because they're both rivals, but whoever wins, basically, not whoever wins, but whoever wins it could play for the Sun Belt Championship and clinch the Sun Belt East title, or Sun Belt West title, I'm sorry. And Louisiana, Raging Cajuns, it was a game that you would hope this would be. They won 31-28. Louisiana Monroe had a shot at a last-second tying field goal. They missed it. Louisiana clinched the West Division. They're going to go play Appalachian State for the Sun Belt Championship next week. Louisiana ran for 240 as a team. Trey Bragas, 23 carries, 115. They played 2 quarterbacks. Andre Nunez, 11 of 15, 148, 3 touchdown passes to 1 pick. Levi Lewis, 6 of 6 for 65 yards, a touchdown and pick. So both their quarterbacks are doing well. Louisiana Monroe, Caleb Evans, they are bowl eligible too. Even still, they're 6-6. Caleb Evans has had a pretty good year, 15 of 24, 201, 2 touchdowns. But in the end, it's Louisiana Lafayette, and they're going to go play for a Sun Belt Championship. All right, UAB taking on Middle Tennessee State. Now, UAB had been the best team in the CUSA. Earlier in the day, Florida International lost, which clinched the CUSA East for Middle Tennessee State, right? So next week, the CUSA Championship game is going to be between UAB and Middle Tennessee State. So they played today, and they got to play again tomorrow. But this actually was pretty significant and wasn't meaningless, because whoever won this game would get to host that game. And Middle Tennessee State destroyed them, 27-3. Brent Stockstill, one of the best quarterbacks in NCAA history, at least statistically speaking. He was 22 of 29, 261, 2 touchdowns, a pick. Ty Lee, 7 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. They held UAB to -1 rushing yards, 90 yards passing. They had 89 total yards, and setting up a really big game. UAB, I feel like they'll play a lot better, but I don't know who's actually going to win. You'll have to check out my preview to get that. Stanford, UCLA, this is actually a really fun game, back and forth. Stanford won a high-scoring game, 49-42. Quarterback KJ Costello for Stanford, 23, 37, 344, 5 touchdown passes. They had 2 guys go over 100 yards receiving. That's not Stanford. They run. JJ Arcega-Whiteside, 7 catches, 106, 3 touchdown receptions. Trenton Irwin, 7 catches, 103, and a touchdown. Go to UCLA. Wilton Speight, the last game of his career, had the game of his career, 29 of 47, 466 passing. No touchdown passes. He threw a pick. He did add 1 rushing touchdown. Caleb Wilson went off for UCLA, 9 catches, 184. It was just a fun back and forth game that Stanford ended up surviving in the end. And now Stanford is going to go play the big game next week against Cal, Stanford Cal. Both teams are good this year, both 7 wins. Both want to get to 8 wins. It's a makeup game for the wildfires that were been happening in California. And they'll play a big game next week. But this one, Stanford came out with the win over UCLA. Arizona State and Arizona, man, Arizona, if they wanted to win this game, they wanted to go to a bowl, they had to win this game. They were 5-6. Fourth quarter, they're up 40-21. Up 19 points in the fourth quarter. You got Khalil Tate, and they made mistake after mistake, and Arizona State wins 41-40. They came all the way back, all in the fourth quarter. And Khalil Tate, 21-39, 282 passing, 3 touchdowns. The 1 pick was what really hurt them late in the game. J.J. Taylor ran for 144 yards. They ran for 238 as a team. But Arizona State, they finished with 7 wins. Manny Wilkins, 265 passing and a touchdown. Eno Benjamin, the running back, he only ran for 80 yards, but 3 rushing touchdowns. Brandon Ayuk had 106 receiving yards and a touchdown. And Arizona State gets a big rivalry win, and they were gonna go to a bowl. Anyway, but it was a fun game to watch the ending of, but it's just kind of like heartbreaking for Arizona fans. Now, on the flip side, Minnesota, this is a really cool story. Minnesota was 5-6 too, facing Wisconsin. Wisconsin kind of had a down year. They were 7-4. They still have the best running back in the country, Jonathan Taylor. And Taylor went off for 120 rushing yards. But that was it, guys. Minnesota beat them. Not only did they win, not only are they going to go bowl eligible, they beat them 37-15. Their first win versus Wisconsin since 2003, and their first win in Madison, in Wisconsin, since 1994. Talk about an axe to grind, and it's for the Paul Bunyan axe, I'm telling you there. Minnesota won it. They did it running. They ran for 201 yards as a team. Mohamed Ibrahim, 121 and a touchdown. Bryce Williams, 50 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns as they became bowl eligible and very well should be going off to a bowl game. Southern Methodist taking on Tulsa. This is kind of what I thought this would go. SMU I felt was the overall better team, but they shouldn't take Tulsa lightly because Tulsa, they can either play terribly or turn it on and win a game. Southern Methodist, they had the extra juice. They wanted to win, get to 6 wins, get to a bowl. But it was all Tulsa. Tulsa ended up winning. The score was close, 27-24. Tulsa won 27-24. But they were up 21-0 at one time. SMU had to come all the way back. They almost did. But Tulsa ended up winning that game. Seth Boomer at quarterback for Tulsa, 20-27, 251, a touchdown. They ran for 130 at his team. Keelan Stokes had 6 catches for 140. You go look at SMU. Ben Hicks, 26-46, 319, 1 touchdown, but he threw 2 picks, which hurt them. James Prochet, really, really good receiver, James Prochet. 11 catches, 183 receiving yards and a touchdown, but they just could not get it done and go to a bowl, and they lost there. Temple took on UConn. Temple was up 40-7 at halftime. They won 57-7. Temple, they ran for 293 as a team. They had a pick 6. They had a kick return for a touchdown. Isaiah Wright, one of the best kick returners in the country, return men period as a punt or kick returner. I think he's got 3 or 4 combined both this year with punt and kick returns. They just scored whatever they wanted. The other thing I'll say the good thing first for UConn. Kevin Mensah ran for 94 yards, which means he went over 1,000 yards. And actually, UConn had 2 1,000-yard rushers this year. Their quarterback went over 1,000, and they had a 1,000-yard rusher. So you might ask, how does a team with two 1,000-yard rushers only win one game? They went 1-11. This is how. Your defense sets the NCAA record for most points allowed in a season, 605. Most yards allowed in a season, 7,409. Points per game giving up 50.41 points per game, and giving up 617.4 yards per game. That's how you lose 11 games with two 1,000-yard rushers. Your defense is terrible. Randy Edsall, I believe in him. He pretty much made UConn really good. He transitioned them back in 1998 or 99 to 1A. They were really good teams with Dan Orlovsky. They could pass around. They had good teams. They went to bowls. I believe he can turn it around, but man, this season. Temple, though, one of the best teams in the American Athletic. UCF is lucky to get by them. They won 8. They're trying to go for 9 in their bowl. All right, Arkansas State took out Texas Tech. They had a shot at winning the Sun Belt East Conference. They didn't end up getting that, but they had a really big win here. They won 33-7. Justice Hansen, one of the best quarterbacks in Sun Belt history, at least Arkansas State history, 18-24, 276, 2 touchdowns. Warren Wan ran for 145 and a touchdown. They ran for 217. Kirk Merritt, 6 receptions, 153 yards and a touchdown. Arkansas State, they're 8-4. They're gonna go to a bowl trying to get a nice 9-win season. Texas State, they did run for 242, but they just could not get it done there. All right, Rutgers against Michigan State. Man, Michigan State, you suck, because Rutgers is terrible, and y'all were down 10-7 with like 4 minutes to go in the game. Michigan State scored late to win 14-10, but man, you guys suck. I mean, yeah, you held them to 217 yards of offense, but you had like 300 maybe yourself, whatever. Rocky Lombardi, less than 50% passing, 19-43, 173, touchdown pick. You did run for 137, I guess. But, that was a close game. But Michigan State, you know what, whatever. This is pretty much what you do. This is kind of your MO. Every now and then you guys have good offensive players where you can put up a bunch of points. But you play defense, you kind of grind it. You're 7-5 that way, trying to get to 8 in the bowl. So, all right. Big rivalry game. Tennessee at Vanderbilt. Whoever wins this goes to a bowl. Both 5-6. Vanderbilt destroyed them 38-13. Kyle Shermer, quarterback for Vanderbilt, 31-35, 367 yards, 3 touchdowns. He likes playing Tennessee. 2 years ago, he passed for like 416. Last year, he had 4 touchdown passes. This year, he just put it all together. And they held the defense. They held Garantano to 13-29 passing, and he threw an interception, which he'd gone 166 straight passes without an interception, would set a school record at Tennessee. So he doesn't make the mistakes, and Vanderbilt forced them into it and just destroyed them, and they became bowl eligible. Keyshawn Vaughn, he only had 25 rushing yards, but it put him over 1,000 yards. I think this is the 6th player in Vanderbilt history to get over 1,000 in a season, so congrats to him. And then Vanderbilt should be off to a bowl. All right, this is a heartbreaker. Florida Atlantic. They didn't have quite the year they had last year when they won 11, but they're playing Charlotte, and Charlotte's not a bad team. They're only in their 5th year of existence. Charlotte only their 2nd year in the FBS. Florida, they needed to win the game to get the 6 to try to get a bowl, and he just could not get it done. Charlotte got a last-second field goal to win 27-24, a 50-yard field goal, actually. Benny LeMay, one of the best running backs in this USA, ran for 173 yards and a touchdown. He overshadowed Devin Singletary, who only ran for 88 yards, didn't get a touchdown. Chris Robinson, Florida Atlantic passer, 273, 2 touchdowns. DeAndre Johnson came in. He did a lot of good things with his leg. He led him down the field to a tying field goal near the end. But fortunately for Florida Atlantic fans, they couldn't get it done. But congrats to Charlotte, 5-7. They just missed out on a bowl themselves this year. Maybe they get one next year. San Jose State taking on Fresno State. It was actually really close. It was only 3-0 at halftime for Fresno State, and then Fresno State, remember, they were good, and they won 31-13. Marcus McMaryion 20-29, 317, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Keyshawn Johnson he set the school record with career receiving yards, and this game showed why he's the best in their history. 7 catches, 173. In a touchdown, and they win 31-13. They have a huge game, Mountain West Championship game at Boise State next week. Rematch from last year, rematch from a few weeks ago. I'll shout out San Jose State. Michael Carrillo, 24-41, 302, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Trey Walker, 11 receptions, 116 yards and a touchdown. So they kept it close, like I said, for the half, but then. Actually, really, the big turning point in the game was Fresno State had a 95-yard interception return for a touchdown. And at that point, Fresno was up, I think, 24-13. And clearly, if it's a 95-yard touchdown, that means they were pretty close. San Jose State was inside the 15, inside the 20. And they just could not capitalize, and Fresno State could. Colorado against California. Colorado lost 33-21. Cal forced 5 turnovers. Not only did California have two pick sixes, 2 interceptions returned for touchdowns in the game, they did it within the first 3 minutes of the game. Actually, within 45 seconds of each other. Like, they threw an interception for a touchdown, like 2 plays later, threw another one, and Cal was able to win. Their quarterback, Chase Garbers, 14-26, 116, 2 touchdowns. Patrick Laird, the running back for California, who had over 1,000 yards rushing last year, he's a little bit short. He's going to have a pretty big... I take it back. He's got 2 games left to get, I think, 130 rushing yards. Oh, no. He's got 2 games left to get 174 rushing yards, which he's really good. So he could very well do that. He's got Stanford in the bowl, so... but he was only held to 45 rushing yards there. Colorado, they wanted to win to try to get a bowl. They just couldn't do it. Steven Montez, 16 of 33, 170, 2 touchdowns, the 3 interceptions, the 2 return. You just can't do that. They held Javon McMillan. He had a great season rushing, but he was only held to 58 yards rushing on 21 carries. And Cal got that win there. All right, Texas took on UTSA. The final was close, 24-21. North Texas, though, they got 9-3. They can win their bowl, though, have a 10-win season. Mason Fine, great quarterback, 26 of 36, 320, 2 touchdowns and a pick. DeAndre Torrey ran for 155 and a touchdown. UTSA, they did keep it close. Bryce Rivers, so it's 20 of 32, 269, a touchdown and a pick. Greg Campbell went off, 11 catches, 186 yards, but North Texas held on there. All right, Oklahoma State, TCU. TCU needed a win to get the bowl eligibility, and they did. They beat Oklahoma State 31-24. Grayson Muhlstein, he's their 3rd-string quarterback. Their top 2 had gotten hurt. 16-25, 180, 2 touchdowns. Jalen Reagor, one of the best all-around playmakers in the nation. I think he's going to be up for the Blitnikoff Award next season. He finished with over 1,000 yards this year so far, and they still have a bowl game. He had 5 carries for 121 yards, one of them an 83-yard touchdown, and he had 8 catches for 91 yards and a touchdown. As they were able to pretty much hold down. Oklahoma State scored 24 later, but they were up by a pretty big, sizable amount. And hold down Taylor Cornelius, the Oklahoma State quarterback. He was only 17 of 40 for 181, 0 touchdowns, a pick. They only ran for 99 yards. And TCU got a pretty big win there, so they're going to go bowling. All right, Nevada and UNLV, a big old rivalry there out in Nevada. Nevada had a 23-point lead, and they lost. They were up 23-0. 20-0 after the first quarter. UNLV comes all the way back to win 34-29. Armani Rogers, quarterback for UNLV, 13-20, 173, 3 touchdown passes. They ran for 226. Ty Gansey, quarterback for Nevada, 27-45, 295, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Kelton Moore ran for 129 yards and a touchdown. They put other points. Their defense just could not hold on, and they lost that game. However, Nevada will be going bowling this season. And the final game of the night, which actually was a really, really good game. Hawaii went to San Diego State. Two kind of opposite offenses. Hawaii passes it all over the place. San Diego State runs it all over the place, and it was on display here. Both teams ended up going to overtime, with Hawaii winning 31-30. San Diego State, their running back, Jawan Washington, ran for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. They had a chance to win it in regulation, but their kicker, who's actually one of the best in the country, John Barron II, he was 17-21. He was 5 for 5 on the year on 50-plus yard field goals. It was like a 30 it was a pretty short field goal, especially for him. He missed it. They go to overtime. Warriors capitalize and win. Cole McDonald, one of the best statistically in the country, but he's bringing that run and shoot, and evidenced by this game. 29-46 passing, 452 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, also ran for 1. They had 2 guys go over 100-yard receiving, and it wasn't even John Ursua, who's the best in the country. John Ursua is like second in the country in receptions and yardage, and he didn't even get over 100. Cedric Bird, 6 catches, 140 and a touchdown. JoJo Ward, 6 catches, 120 and a touchdown. And San Diego State actually did score a touchdown in overtime. They went for 2 to try to win it. They couldn't get it. Hawaii, they won 8 games. Great comeback season for them. They haven't been this fun or like this in basically since June Jones left almost 10 years ago. And Hawaii got a huge win that way. But both teams will be going off to a bowl. So that's it, guys. That was my final review for the regular season in college football. I'll have reviews for the championship games and the bowl games. That's 2 more videos basically for my reviews. Check it out. With me and my sister, we're gonna do our picks and previews together for next week's games. So there's 16 games, there's 10 conference championships, and there's a few like makeup games from the Hurricanes and the Wildfires and stuff earlier in the year. So we'll do that, but it's actually awesome doing this year. You guys will see me next year bigger, better, and improved. Peace.